very first interview. Oh, the broadcast is live
there
now.
We are. Now we are live.
Hello, everybody. That's the second time I got to say it. Welcome to the very, very first interview. It's for reals this time with Thriving Females. I am Sarah.
And I am Tara. I'm sorry, I'm trying to invite our guest on Instagram, and we're just having some difficulties, but that's okay because hopefully you'll be able to hear it through, everything. But I am super excited to introduce Heidi Conberry, who is not.
Hey, I'm going to pause, Tara. I'm going to pause for a sec. It is echoing because I can hear it all the way over here. So we got to fix our echoing. So I don't want you guys to miss anything. Hang on. All right, try that introduction again.
All right, so hopefully we are not still echoing.
Nope, no echo here. Ask the audience. Can somebody from the audience let us know if we're echoing on IG?
And so I was going to say, I'm not seeing any other comments up there.
Good, I think we might have it.
Oh, awesome. We are loving technology.
Go ahead and introduce your fabulous friend.
All right, so take 2 or take 5, because I feel like we're there already. So Heidi Conberry, she is my best friend, somebody that we have known each other now since 2005. Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
But such an inspiration to me and to the field and to women and mothers and entrepreneurs. And so Heidi, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then we're gonna kind of dive into some questions and chats.
Love it. So Tara and I actually met in graduate school. So my education is in higher ed, and I started out in university administration for a good solid, 10 to 12 years or so, and loved it. I was in university housing. I did some women's centers, some student conduct, just kind of a big mixed match, and absolutely adored it, and had made a move to Texas and sort of felt this pull out of higher ed and into something else. And I really didn't know exactly what that was. Much like I'm sure a lot of folks, you get to these different transitional periods, especially for women, where I had 2 kids at that point and was kind of like, what's happening? And when I was in higher ed, I had used a particular assessment that I adored, StrengthsFinder, or Clifton Strengths, and used it a lot with my staff, learning about them, managing them, introduced it to student groups, and loved it. And so when I knew my time in higher ed was done, I just kind of felt this call, like maybe you could make that a thing. Maybe you could go through a certification process and start coaching folks outside of higher ed to learn a little bit more about themselves, what motivates them. And looking back, I think, how easy would it have been to get the certification and then start coaching higher ed through StrengthsFinder, because I knew so many people in that zone. But I did not. I chose to climb up the really rocky side of the mountain and throw myself into corporate, which I had 0 experience doing. And it's amazing to me. I think sometimes in a high educational setting, the love of self-development and self-discovery is just sort of naturally there, because you're in an educational environment where growth mindset is everywhere. And in the corporate world, that's just not often the case. And there was such a major need, I found, especially for women, to be told that there's things that are right with them, and that they have talents that are natural to themselves, that are different and unique from everyone else. And so I kind of now have this massive pleasure of going into businesses and reminding people why they're great. And it's just absurdly rewarding as a career.
Heidi, I gotta tailgate off your one.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
When you said that you just jumped off a cliff, I feel like don't you feel like all females, especially moms or women in general, they just jump off a cliff, or, you know, if you have something due in 2 weeks, you wait till the 24th hour to do it because we do better under pressure, or just throw us in and we'll figure it out. I feel like a lot of people,
Right.
especially females, that's how we work.
Mhm.
And it's not even just moms, because I think college students, I mean, I'll talk to my niece, she'll do it at the last minute. She's like, I'm better under pressure, you know, and stuff like that. So I feel that's all females. We all jump off that cliff at some point.
It is. And the more that you kind of recognize and realize that you're not alone in that zone, that, you know, you feel like you're jumping off a cliff and you're the only one that's jumping and you're really not sure if you have a parachute or not, that, you know, in those times, really reminding yourself or taking a minute to breathe and think like there's another woman in this room even that is doing something the exact same way at the moment, and recognizing that commonality between us and that community that we have that we don't tap into, you know, quite as much, but we're all going through something very similar.
And that's a good thing for people to remember when they're like overwhelmed. They can think, you know, hey, somebody else here is probably doing the same dang thing I'm doing right now.
Amen.
So before we dive a little bit more in, I know we're getting a little bit of not sound feedback, but word feedback. I understand on Instagram you're only seeing Sarah and I, but you are hopefully hearing Heidi. And so we are having just a little bit of a technical difficulty getting Heidi into Instagram. But hopefully the sound feedback is okay on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you're able to see and hear the three of us. I also want to remind you, don't forget that you can be putting comments on either one, and we'll be able to pull them up onto the screen. And so I love that we have somebody that is saying, hello, Sarah, Tara, and Heidi. Heidi, your mom put Sarah's name first. I just want to note that. I thought that was pretty good. But don't worry, Sarah, because your mom and dad and Murphy are watching.
I knew they'd be on here. Don't you love our mothers?
So thank you so much. I do appreciate that feedback that Facebook is going well. So don't forget that you can always add questions or comments, and we'll be able to see them. We may try to put them up onto the screen so that others can see it as well. But go ahead, dive in.
So we're not able to add Heidi onto Instagram?
I can try one more time. Heidi, are you following the channel?
I am now.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, here we go. Now a voice, a picture, our face with it. There you go. Now everybody can see it.
All right. Just kidding. This is what happens when you're like, hey, we have a problem. And then it starts fixing it.
See, I'm the pushy one. I'm like, Tara, try it again. And this is how we get our followers too. We're like, join right now.
Yes. Okay. Sarah, go ahead and turn your volume down on your computer screen and let your phone do the sound. Heidi, thank you so much for being like our first official interview where we are just working out all this stuff so that when these like exciting people from Australia, which I'm gonna have to figure out what that time zone is like, the UK.
You know what's funny? That I know I am friends with several other strengths coaches that live in Australia. There's a huge strengths coach following in Australia or community. And we will get online and do stuff together every now and then and really have to figure out the time zone situation, which I let other people do because it's not my jam, but somebody's getting up early, either us.
I'm just actually glad it's you as we're reaching over trying to figure out. I think I'm echoing now. I turned it up.
This is why I just appreciate these viewers who are so patient with us.
All right, Heidi, I have a question right off the bat.
Okay.
So I was looking at your website, and I think it would be good for the listeners. You asked, what does flourishing, because you took the name, you said, what does it look like to me and my family? And that's kind of how you went with your business. So what did you come up with? I mean, you said a little bit in there, but I want to what did Heidi go, wow, okay, this is what it looks like.
This is what, how I got the name, or how I see what flourishing looks like currently.
Well, first, what does flourishing look like to you and your family? But then how did it roll into getting your name that you came up with?
I think as far as family's concerned, I have two kids. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and a fiance. And I think Flourish has always, to me, in a familial sense, been about being excited about who you are as an individual. I think that's really only where true flourishing happens. I think we do well. In fact, I did a workshop today actually on the difference between operating out of skill and operating out of talent.
Exactly.
And what happens when we constantly are looking at and doing life through skill and doing our work through skill, and how we can do it that way, right? We can cross the T's, we can dot the I's, we can go through the daily deal, but we won't experience the joy of growth when we're operating out of skill. And versus when we're doing that out of our talent, we just, like, the sky isn't big enough. And because we just keep growing and developing and things keep happening. And, that zone that you get into where you feel like you have carbonation in your veins, that's that moment of flourishing. And so for family, I'm blessed with being able to coach during the day, and that really bleeds over into family life too. My fiance is also a coach, and so poor kids.
Wow, I'm going to ask a couple of questions.
I know. There's a lot of development in this house.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's crazy. But we focus quite a bit on recognizing and celebrating the areas that we are not doing well individually, and the areas that we are, and really diving into those. And so I've got, which I assume we'll talk about at some point, but later this year, I've got 2 books coming out that are parenting related, actually. One for the parents and one for the kids. And they talk about different ways that you can connect conversationally with family at home that allows you for your relationships to really flourish. So communication being a big part of that too. And some vulnerability in the household. But family-wise, I really think it's getting an uplift from your family on who you are and really celebrating what that is. The name for Flourish came from the thesaurus.
Love a good thesaurus.
I mean, I do too. It is just the absolute best. And I had looked at, it's funny that thrive is in your name, because I originally looked at the word thrive. And that was the goal, right? Was to help people thrive in their particular roles at work. And that was the same time that another website had come out, Thrive, that the Huffington Post, it was kind of like a little subset of that or something. And so I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to compete. So I ended up choosing Flourish on there, and I thought, you know what? That's what I want. Like this just concept of this flower opening up, and just really being able to soak everything in, because it feels so healthy and open and ready to go. And so,
okay. So Heidi, because you said flower and open, I got to do a funny story. So today, I'm coming home from the gym with my friend Elba, who's from Colombia, and she has a very strong Latin accent. And she said, oh, we were talking about the interview, and she just evidently glanced or misread your title of Flourish. She thought it said florist. And she goes, this will be exciting. Do you think she's going to talk about her flowers or show her flower arrangements? And I was like, what? And she goes, the florist. I said, no, it's Flourish. We laughed so hard on that all the way home. And I was like, nope, we're not having a florist on the show.
That's amazing. There definitely was a time in my life where I wanted to be a florist. So
I mean, I remember when you first introduced it, you always were a baker in my mind. And so I went like flower-ish.
Yes. Tara, I forgot that was part of it too. Oh.
Yes. But one thing that I do love, and, I think we always value these different people in our lives, and they serve in these different roles and meanings in our lives. And Heidi, as much as you and I are so similar and love to just, get down with the get down and have fun and just goof off, like, you are the one that always was able to get deep and to find like those inner layers and those inner meanings for things. But you do it in a way that makes it to where like we can understand and that we appreciate it. Because I am not one to be like, let's go deep into that stuff. But you kind of wrote me in, and so I can only see like what your clients must feel like when you're doing that.
I mean, you know what? I feel like, and I was telling somebody this the other day, that I've always been fascinated by humans. I have always felt like we're created so uniquely, and I adore the fact that we're all so different and we have something to contribute. And there is not a day goes by that I'm not truly humbled by being able to sit down with somebody and listen to them open up about something that's going on in their life, and they're searching for something different, and not that because they're going through something difficult, but just to be able to be in the presence of someone who thinks so differently and like has something to offer. And it's true. Like I very often will sit in front of someone and just want to shake them in a nonviolent way. Because I want to be like, do you know how great you are? Like I can see you. And so it's amazing to be able to kind of be there. And you know that right now, my organization, how I go into a business, I'll do different workshops for them, but typically I'll go in a few days a month and kind of set up shop in an empty office, and we'll be there all day, and any level of employee can sign up for a 45-minute coaching session. So they'll come in, they'll sit down, we'll talk about their strengths, or they'll come in and say, I'm having difficulty doing this one thing, can you help me? Or I'm having a hard time connecting with somebody, can you help me? Or, you know, whatever. And am I the only one hearing that?
No, we're all hearing it.
Okay.
Everybody, viewers and all.
Great.
It's a fire drill. Everybody run.
It's letting us know something really good is coming.
I feel everybody on your seat, on your edge of your seat.
Everybody turn. Let's go.
Heidi's about to shake us down and say, you are great. You are one great.
I mean, seriously, I sat there and thought, like, am I building myself up? Is this me?
Hey, we are so excited. So Heidi, I have a question. Like, this is just me. Like, what if you went in, I know you do like seminars and you have retreats and you talk to different corporates and corporations and do team building. Like, were you ever afraid that you'd go in there and it would be like womp, 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 like nobody got anything out of
Girl,
it? Like,
yes.
Like you're like, I couldn't make them do better, or I couldn't make them think. Did you ever worry about that?
Yes.
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 Do you have a story?
She always has a story.
I have thousands. So so part of my talent, I get a big surge from winning people, and not in like a collection in the closet sort of a way, but like I really want to get you on board. Like that is my goal going into especially bigger, larger workshops, is to get you on board. And I will go to all lengths, and I can kind of tell sometimes by, you know, the level of jokes or the level of interaction with a group if we're getting someplace. But you know, there are some times I'll go into an organization to do something and they're in a really bad place. Like their motivation is incredibly low. Leadership is really struggling, like and even recently within the last 6 months, it's been sort of tough because a lot of organizations are coming back to the office with a lot of resistance. And so staff doesn't want to be there. And so I'm walking into some more hostile environments than maybe I have in the past. And I have found myself, I have to watch it because my jokes will get more and more borderline appropriate, not appropriate to say in the workplace, but I'm like on the edge, like I will get you to like me and this particular presentation. But I think and I have to be careful too, because I'll often share stories from higher ed about situations with students, and those are never appropriate. And everyone's always just kind of, but for the most part, what I do is really different than in the corporate world than what they usually get. And so me coming in and, I'm very, I don't know if you can tell, very conversational in the way that I conduct myself. So I present this exact same way. And that's very different in the corporate world. For me to get up and just talk to you like you're a human, because I'm a human and we both had to commute here this morning. And that level of connection most of the time will make a difference in some way, to where most, the majority, I'm not going to get everybody, but we'll get the ones that in that moment really need to feel connected to somebody else in an authentic way. But every time I'll even survey, like I'll kind of look around the room and be like, who am I going to have to make extra eye contact with? I can already tell. I can already see it. They don't want to be here. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I'm going
to be here. Guess what?
You are anyway.
So Heidi, a question that I have, I know that you do college kids and you do corporate, are those your two targets, is corporate and college, correct? So yeah. I know we have some college listeners too. So tell us the difference between, because I'm sure you don't approach them in the same way.
No, some things I do a little bit, I'd say, but yeah, the approach is a little bit different. I think, really, actually, their stressors are somewhat similar, to be honest with you. I think we sort of, and this was a surprise to me because I really, when I started coaching in the business setting, I really anticipated those to look different. In fact, I started trying to coach them and do presentations in a way that was very unfamiliar to me. I ended that very quickly because I realized that wasn't who I was. But I just anticipated coming into the office and feeling like they had everything under control, that they had their lives like this, and then my presentation needed to look like this. And it just wasn't the case. I found some major similarities between the two. With college students, they're in sort of this, oftentimes in presentations with me, some kind of fork in the road, right? Yeah. Either they're the panic of getting towards the end of their degree and they're like, oh my God, this thing is all about to change, or being somewhere in the middle and going, I'm going to get a degree in something I hate. I don't know what I'm doing here. Or just the general, I don't know what I'm doing here, right? Kind of feeling. And that is so common in the workplace also, that both sides are really just craving a positive look at themselves. Our self-talk is so nasty sometimes, and that continues on into the workplace too. And so I guess yes and no. I mean, I think I approach it in a little bit of different way, but generally kind of what I'm speaking towards is really about understanding the difference between yourself and someone else and being able to appreciate both of those. Yeah. So yeah.
So what is your goal when you go in there? Like, you go in, this is what we're going to accomplish. And so I think I have an understanding, but people listening, what is your goal when you work with team members of a corporation, or if you work with college students, when you go in and then when you leave, this is what, from A to Z, what you want to see happen?
Well, if I'm meeting with a group for kind of the first time, my goal before they leave is that they have learned something about themselves and something about somebody else in the room. And it's funny because I find a lot of times when I'll say, oh, I want you to learn something about yourself, there's maybe some eye rolls in the room, because a lot of folks, we feel like we know ourselves, right? So this woman knows me not 1 second, but she thinks she can come in this room and tell me something about myself that I don't know, which I totally get. But the thing is, our strengths, our talents, they are as close as the end of our nose, right? We can't see them. they're so natural to us. We use them all the time. The way that we build relationships, the way we learn, the way we interact with the world around us. And so sometimes when I'm going over something like that in a workshop, there are these big aha moments. And maybe not as much about, oh, I didn't know that one thing about myself, but the aha moment is often, you mean nobody else in this room does that too? Especially if it's a small group, right? It's like, what do you mean you all aren't looking at this from a checklist perspective? How could you not?
So, Heidi, we've got a pretty good question. Are men more resistant to you in what you have to offer? Like, are you seeing any differences there?
Yes. Yes. And you know what? Mom, that's such a good question. Nothing, I think, until up to this point has made me more proud to be a woman than workshops that I do. And it's not because of me, it's because the ones in the room that are ready to dig deep, the ones that are ready to confront their own stuff, the ones that are ready to extend a handout in order to meet in the middle, to learn a little bit more about somebody else and compromise, are the women. And I mean, first and foremost, the organizations that I come and do one-on-one coaching, women, first ones to sign up. And that's not obviously fully the case. I mean, I coach a lot of men in all organizations of all different ages and positions within an organization for sure, but that's a steeper climb. And I just find that women tend to be more receptive when it comes to kind of calling their own stuff out, which is a big part of this. You know, we have these talents and these strengths, but we choose how to use them. So sometimes we use them and they really help us. And sometimes we use them and they cause us and other people a bunch of hardship. And that part is a really tough conversation in coaching. But it's one that I find women tend to be more responsive to and more willing to work on and towards. And it sometimes takes them a little longer to get there.
Heidi, do you feel that, what was I thinking? I just had a thought, is that when you're doing it, is it all mostly, when you talk to people, do you dig mostly into their personal or do you dig past their personal? I mean, how do you get to them? Because like sometimes, I mean, I guess I'm asking you is what sets you apart from like, you know, you see all these self-help books or knowledge books. What's setting you apart that you can get from?
Yeah. That's a really good question, actually, because I have to correct people quite a bit. There are some clients that will refer to me somewhat jokingly, but somewhat not, as their therapist, which I am not.
Good.
I think, yeah. You know, I'd say it's about half and half. I think people about half come in and focus more on their personal life, and maybe half come in and focus more on their professional life. And I'm actually okay either way, though my role in an organization is obviously to help you improve professionally. So performance coaching is the title that I use for myself, because we're really looking at your performance. If we happen to solve an issue in your personal life through coaching, that will bleed over into your professional life. So that's why I'm okay in both zones, talking about both zones. Coaching to me is different. You know, therapy and counseling looks back, right? And looks at things that happened in the past and try and help solve some of those, learn from those things, heal from those things. Coaching looks forward. It doesn't look back. So coaching, I'm looking at what's going on with you today, right? And how can we make some specific changes in the way that you interact with others, or the way that you use your particular strengths that will affect tomorrow and then will affect the next day. So it's very forward focused. But, you know, I mean, I keep on hand a list of therapists that I really love that are either in the Dallas area specifically, or a couple that are in different states that I'll often refer people to if they're coming in for coaching and things are getting a little bit heavier, or clearly they've got some stuff that they need to dig into in their past a little bit. Then I'll refer them out to that and kind of keep them on the coaching side to just talk about sort of today and tomorrow.
That's awesome. Do you, how's your business usually? Do you get them from referrals or from advertising?
So I've been 100% referral for 6 years, which is,
I think that's the best way to go.
oh my gosh. I just, it's amazing. And I've had 2 clients, organizational clients, for 5 years each. And they just keep adding more and more to their contract every year, which is wonderful. So a lot of, and that's the case for a couple of different clients. So a lot of them, there's some longevity there. I've been with them for a long time. And they either keep adding, or, I really get to know their people at that point, coaching for, 5 years or so with the same folks. And then can really start to see that growth happen in them. But the very beginning, I made some contacts with some different people that I knew they were in a few different industries, and would just sort of ask at the beginning, if you can just get me an in, as in like just an ability to pitch. And I just kind of leaned and trusted, my gut, that I could go in and figure out how to provide for them what they needed. And this is really different, this field, it's especially right now where mental wellness is a massive focus for a lot of organizations at the moment, which it should be. But especially because, there's PTSD from COVID from the past 2 years that a lot of people are working through. I think most of us in some degree are working through. And it's right. And so, I've talked to several business owners actually here over the last couple of months who have said, what can you help us do? Because our folks are struggling, they're with being at work all day, and, they used to be home and work-life balance was better. And they were, especially moms, talking about how I could run a meeting and go throw some stuff in the laundry and then run back to a meeting. And then I could do this one thing and I could go run this errand. And so, what I'm doing is providing a little more wellness in the workplace and giving folks a chance to breathe, have a 45-minute moment to just be, with somebody else at work.
So there's
Heidi, with that comment about being with COVID, when you said people had that work-life balance, in your opinion, was it better that people were more remote, working from home? Do you think that? Yeah.
I know some of my clients are like, don't say that online. But yes, I think the hybrid is best. Actually, Gallup just did a research study on this last year, kind of as hybrid situations were happening, and found that most people, the most productive is a hybrid situation where they've got a little bit of home and a little bit at work and have some freedom to kind of go back and forth. But I think what happened with COVID was a slowdown in our massively focused doing life. And we had a chance to reconnect in a lot of ways. We had a chance to breathe. And that slowdown, Lita being that slowdown, has been a really, really hard thing because our connection with family is down now because we're back up to doing all the things and we're going all day Saturday and we're, so seems like for most people that the balance was a little bit better when we were at home. For most.
So we've got a question that came through on Instagram, and I think you've touched on it a little bit, but when you're working with these organizations, you're talking about the participants, you're talking about how your in is with that leadership first so that they buy into it. And so do you find them genuinely engaged, or is it more of just like the checking the boxes that we did this workplace engagement? So thank you, Lindsay, for bringing that question out.
That's a good one. Depends on the organization. I will tell you that you can tell a massive difference in how this works in an organization if the leadership are invested in it. Now, I definitely coach in several areas where the leadership could not possibly care less if I was there. but they bring me back every year because they'll put the sign-up sheet out for the days I'm going to be in the office, and they fill up in 2 minutes. So they can't deny that. And that's not, I don't feel like that's me. I feel like that's just, we're craving so much of that. Can I just connect with somebody and just be with somebody for 45 minutes? And so the leadership isn't really in it, but their people are in it so much that there's no way that they could not continue to invest in this as something in the workplace.
So in that situation, do you ever have to sit down and say, hey, the workplace is doing great, but the leadership isn't following through? It would
Oh,
be
yes.
work dynamics.
Oh, yes. And that's either really well received or not. But they need to know, right? Like they're, and usually I'll say something like, hey, I just kind of want to follow up. You know, it's been a few months. Your people are signing up in droves with this. And I would love to see you actually, if you'd want to come in sometime and just kind of chat about what's going on, because oftentimes in that senior leadership area, or definitely the CEO area, it's a very lonely space. We don't think about that often, but that's a lonely space. And so if I can draw them in sometimes into a one-on-one of some way, that really makes a difference and helps and starts to get them a little bit more engaged.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's sort of most organizations who are bringing me in, they're focused on culture, right? Like they're trying to invest in something that's going to be there for their people because they know there's a need. And so most of the time they're in it, right? Like they're supportive. They'll come in for their own sessions with me. I have several CEOs that will pay for my services outside of the organization even after, because they just need coaching on their own. But it's tough. You know, some of those, there definitely are several that I've coached that their leadership team doesn't see the value, but their people cry in sessions every time. So those are really hard.
But Heidi,
also,
let's go ahead and flip it now. So, you know, Angie's asking, like, young women in high school, like, how are you working with them to hone their strengths? Because I just feel like that's the malleable, if you're saying that word, that we're correct, like that's the time. And then you can see these women flourish and thrive and go on to be amazing.
That's an area that I'd really like to get involved with, to be honest. Can you imagine like sitting down with somebody when you were in high school and learning about your talent at that age, when we're in this just like vulnerability to the max level?
I either would have been like, I know I'm okay, or I would have been like, oh my God, tell me more.
I know.
You don't think I can be an astronaut? What?
Right? What do you mean there's something right with me? I mean, just huge.
But it is. It's like if you could get them at high school, then like you're doing college, and then the work world. I mean, we have amazing women just walking around all the time.
It sounds like a dream environment to me.
It is tough.
Yeah. So I would love to figure out how to. I've actually been introduced to, at least in Dallas, a couple of ISD, like school districts, human resource managers here recently. So that might be kind of an area for me to get in and start doing some things for high school women. But it would be invaluable to that level for sure.
I think it's a really good idea to get that high school.
Yeah,
absolutely. What would you tell, let's just use the high school and college girls. What would you tell them, two of your best pieces of information when you have your retreats and your seminars that you always want them to take away? Anybody that's listening right now, something that they can use in their daily life.
So there's the one statistic that, you know, actually solidified me in using the particular assessment that I use. So with Clifton Strengths, when you take that assessment and you get your strengths report back, the odds of someone having your same results in the same order are close to 1 in 478 billion.
Wow.
Now, there's not 478 billion people on the planet currently, nor has there ever been combined, which means you are the only person who's ever walked this earth who thinks exactly like you do. We can't afford for you not to be present and contribute who you are to the world, because nobody else will do it. Nobody else can do it, right? They can't offer the same perspective that you have, build relationships the same way that you can. I mean, nobody can. So to me, that uniqueness and purpose behind that for us as individuals, especially when we feel like there's nothing special about us, that we're just grinding, we're not contributing anything big. It's already built in, right? You don't have to change who you are to contribute something meaningful to the world. You already have it. You already have it. And to me, like in today's society where we're always, I mean, I just did it before this thing. I'm looking online like the best anti-aging cream for under your eyes, the best, right? Like we're always trying to like, oh, I gotta fix something or change something to put my best forward, right? When it comes to what's internally in you, you don't have to change an ever-loving thing. I mean, it's already there. So to me, especially for high school and college age women, that just lean on that. I mean, just wake up and rest on that. Like you're amazing already. Don't have to change a thing. Don't have to look a certain way. It's just figuring out what that is, right? Maybe chatting with somebody at some point to figure out exactly what that area is and get pumped about it. But you've already got it. We can't afford
good advice. Be unique. Stay unique.
That's it.
Does Courtney have a question?
Yeah, so we're going to switch gears a little bit. And I just love that Courtney has brought this up, because seeing who is joining us, seeing some of the different things that have come through, seeing, thinking about the conversations that we've had with people, that is the purpose of why, Sarah, you wanted to bring Thriving Females. Like, Heidi, share with us, you're a mom. And you are starting a business, like two things that like may not necessarily go together, but you have just created this powerful thing. So how was that? What was it like?
It was insanely hard. And it still is.
Honest. I love honest.
And so she's just like that's it, Courtney, we've answered it.
It's hard.
It's hard. There's been so many tears. So many. To this day. I mean, and I want to be super honest about that, because the whole, I don't know, the girl boss vibe, whatever, while super empowering to a lot of people, and I think it's great, doesn't often show the realness behind, and the authentic side of business building, which is really damn hard. And especially on the mothering side, because, the other night, so I did 3 presentations today at an organization, and last night wanted to be super present with my kids and just wasn't, like I was thinking so much about, I got to do this and I got to turn this in with taxes and I need to build these things up for tomorrow and I need to, right? And in this, when you're building a business, a lot of it is dictated to you, when you're going to have to put in extra work and when you're not going to be able to go to the park today when you really wanted to. But the reward, in it, the simple reward being I have more flexibility with the business that I've built now. I didn't, but now, right, can decide, hey, I'm going to reserve this week and we're just going to go. And so there are some wonderful parts to it in that way. My daughter in particular talks all the time now about owning her own business. Girls can own their own business. My mom does.
I love that.
So she will.
She will.
You will work for her, I have a feeling.
That's pretty much how that's going to be.
But Heidi, you're leading by example, like, the whole throwing off the cliff. She probably saw you at your worst moment a couple of times, but she saw you overcome it, triumph, I guess.
Yeah. And the thing which I appreciate too about this is to a level that's, okay for their maturity, but being honest with them about the business building process has been a big deal too. And I'll let them know, like, what, today was really hard. I tried to build this part of the business and it failed, and I haven't been able to get it back up and going. Or, whatever, right? Because at the beginning stage, for sure, you are head of marketing, you're head of finance, you're head of accounting, you're head of sales, you're head of production, right? And head of household in a lot of ways. And so it's just a lot. I think a big part has been support system from like a professional side made a huge difference for me. I found an awesome counselor that has made a gigantic difference in just being able to process outside of family and self, and really kind of getting myself motivated, realizing to some extent I'm not able to do everything, nor should I. So figuring out, maybe I need to hire somebody to do this. Maybe I need to hire somebody to do this, and zoning in on what I do well and dispersing the rest in which I don't. So little things like that have made a big difference in the process too. But Courtney, like, it's just hard. I mean, it just is,
But that's reality and that's the truth, but the rewards are there as well.
Huge rewards.
So I got to go back to when you're in the beginning, you said your husband does exactly what you do. So like, are you building each other up, like when you're getting ready, or your fiance? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it like all these build up moments? Like, are you always happy? I'm like wondering, is like, what is that vibe? And then it's like, no, you are good. No, you are good.
I know. It's
You're awesome. You're awesome.
That's right. We're just no. What I am incredibly thankful for is, I have a significant other who fully understands what I do. That is invaluable to me. Because that support is there, he knows what I'm about to go do. He knows what it's like to have a really hard coaching conversation. He knows, so that part is just is wonderful. And so that buildup is there, like you're talking about, in that zone. But we're both coaches. So don't at all think we don't have to every now and then go, don't you coach me.
I know what you're doing.
I know what you're doing. I know that.
I just was wondering if you're walking around cheering each other on. Fold that laundry, right on.
Right. Oh, definitely not. But because we both, he has his certification in strengths as well.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, we really know how to, we understand the why behind what one another does. Right. And what each other needs. So like, if I'm just super kind of like withdrawn and just a little bit exhausted, or whatever, he knows that I have positivity high. Maybe I need to be around people. Like, maybe let's go to a coffee shop so you can just be around other people and maybe introduce yourself to them, or just get the energy of being, with others or whatever. So that part's really fun because we can kind of see that. And we joke about calling each other's strengths out all the time, especially when we see them not working well. But yeah, that "don't you coach me" part is always super hilarious, because that for sure happens.
We had a good follow-up question from Courtney. So how long did it take for you to become successful enough to have that flexibility? So I think this is coming from, a couple different areas, as a mom, as a significant other and partner, as
or even a college student might want to know how long it takes.
Yeah. I was profitable in the third year. So, which I'm super proud of. I was not expecting that by any means. I think, so most businesses fail within the first 5 years. I think it's like 80%, which is, I guess. So something to kind of keep.
Oh my God, this five
Yeah.
shaped cloud over your head.
But it made
It's
you more
crazy.
determined.
To me, it did.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, bet. Let's go. And I like a competitive drive, so that helped me a lot. But just using that even as a framework to kind of figure out your plan, right? And recognizing, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 or 2 years to be profitable in some way, or at least see my gross continue to gain by this percentage every year.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say, by the 3rd year is probably when I started to gain the most flexibility. The first year or two, technically there was flexibility, but that's because I didn't have as many clients. So I had more downtime because I didn't have as many people there. But full flexibility, year 5, I think for sure. And that was where I was fully able to take care of my family financially and feel like I could take time when I needed to take time. And so, I mean, that made a big difference. I would say probably right up by year 5, which sort of makes sense at that point. Either if you're following the 80% part, like you've built your business to the point where you have flexibility and that profitability part, or that balance just isn't there. And that's, kind of when the businesses start to fall to the wayside.
Heidi, as we probably got to wrap it up here soon, but I knew you wrote 1 book or co-hosted, or did you co-wrote, I guess, 1 book, and now you have 2 books coming up?
Yeah. That first book was a collaboration with other strengths coaches. And so we each had a chapter in that particular book
Cool.
and just went through a little bit of our coaching development. So how we got into that, how we had started to build our business a little bit. Each one of the coaches in that book was from a really different perspective. Some coached in the faith area. Some did in performance, like myself. Some did in education. So some were exclusively just individual one-on-one coaching and not group. So there are a couple different ways. But the 2 that I have coming out this fall, one is a book for parents, actually, and the second book is a companion for kids. So when I went through divorce several years ago, I had moved into an apartment and had brought my kids to the apartment for the first time. And we were kind of walking around and looking at things that were new in the apartment they'd never seen, and things that were familiar, things that had come with me. And we got to their room. They shared a room and they had this really big closet. And we got to the closet and kind of stood in there. And my son had said, "This closet's so big, it's like we could have a meeting in here." And I just it just hit me like a ton of bricks. You need to have a meeting. You need to have a meeting. So I said, well, how about we just sit down and have a meeting then? And so they kind of looked at me funny, but we went on ahead and sat down. And I just said, you know what, maybe we kind of check in with each other, because I'm feeling a lot of emotion right now. I'm excited about our new space. I'm sad that there is a new space. I'm confused about which way I feel at the moment, and maybe I feel both. And so I kind of started to open up a little bit about that with them, and they immediately did the same. Lots of tears. We were in the closet for a solid hour, probably. They were really young at the time. And we stood up afterwards, and my son said, "We should really do these closet check-ins more often."
I love that.
And it immediately stuck. I thought, well, that's the name of it, I guess.
I was going to say, did you name the book that?
I was going to say, Heidi, I remember you sharing that. And Lindsay, if you're still listening on Instagram, my daughter and I have Jeep chats. And so it's always when we are driving home, and she usually crawls up into the front seat at some point when we are in the driveway, and she has learned about the birds and the bees in a Jeep chat. She has, talked about what's been, just the ups and downs. And so that's been a huge takeaway for me as a parent, to find that time when they do open up.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I love that it's in your Jeep. The whole book is basically teaching families how to create the closet check-in. And it doesn't have to be in a closet. It could be in a Jeep. It could be at the foot of a bed, if that's the only space that you've got. But I go through in the parent book the whole process of how I set it up, how frequently does it happen, who gets to go, what happens if nobody shares, what happens if somebody shares something big, what happens if they talk about something they did that normally needs discipline, and they're opening up about it in the closet check-in. And, we started doing them, a couple times a week. And it got to the point where they would begin asking for them when they were having a problem.
That's awesome. I love that.
Which just huge. Hazel was 4 when she asked for a closet check-in one time during a tantrum. She said, "Mom, I think I need a closet check-in." And of course, I just, okay. Yeah. And so the book is called The Closet Check-In, and it's just teaching families kind of a new, interesting way to connect. And the kids' book is called Maisel in the Magical Closet. And Maisel talks to kids about how this magic thing happens in her mom's closet, where she goes in and talks about things and walks out feeling better.
Oh, that's so good. Now, are they for sale yet or not yet?
Not yet. We're going through the final editing processes now. So August is the target date.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, the start of the school year, maybe a new process that you can start in the house, when the school year starts. So
yeah,
I'll keep you updated. Yeah.
Now, Heidi, you were like, Tara told me all about you. She's like, oh, she's a wealth of information. She's no filter. She'll tell you all it is. I would love to come to one of your seminars.
I mean, I'm biased, but like, that's a friend.
Yes, it was so good to be able to. My goal is to try to put a spotlight on females out there doing great things, or just everyday females doing life. And I just loved everything that you talked about today. It was a great choice when Tara said to invite you. I got to ask all the questions because she knows everything about you. She's like, go ahead, answer it. Keep talking.
Well, this has been awesome.
If you're open to it, if you want to put any of your contact information, if anybody wants to follow up, I mean, we're not here endorsing or, fully pushing anything.
We're not collaborating.
With guests like these are those real conversations where sometimes it's, just amazing to send a little quick message.
Oh my word, yes. And I'm happy to jump on a Zoom with somebody if someone's like, hey, can I kind of walk through? I've got some questions about this, or what does it look like in an organization, or, I'm lost. I mean, because
I think it's great that your company works with college to adults, and I really hope you can find that niche with high school girls as well. I think that you have a good thing going there. So
me too. Do you want me to put my email in the chat? Does that help?
Or if you feel comfortable, yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, anybody can reach out to Heidi about anything. We'll circle back when you guys get the books. The books will go on sale in August, correct?
Correct.
I just think that's adorable, the names of it. So, Tara, you can do yours about the Jeep too.
That's right.
Well, Heidi, thanks so much for being on the show. Our very first interview. We didn't even know. We just talked and talked and talked. We didn't have a time. You were great. You were our first interview. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
I have loved it so much. Tara, it's good to see your face too.
Yes. All right. Well, thank y'all so much. And
hi, Heidi. We're awesome.
Next one, we'll definitely post it out there for you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you guys.